The shadow role reversal. In the deepest folds of your subconscious lies a version of you that you often pretend does not exist. It is not the version you show to friends or family. It is not the version you wish to become. It is the version you bury, your hidden self, the part of you that envies, manipulates, fears, obsesses. Psychologists call it the shadow. But in this forbidden technique, we don't confront it, we let it take your place. Imagine yourself lying in your bed, thoughts racing, a swirl of self-doubt or anticipation keeping your mind awake. Now, instead of resisting, instead of trying to silence the noise, try something radical. Close your eyes and imagine stepping out of your body, gently, as though shedding a layer of clothing, and watching someone else lie in your place. This person looks exactly like you. Every detail is right. But this is your shadow self, the one who acts impulsively, who fears rejection, who overthinks, who judges others in silence. And now, in this reversal, you are no longer the subject of the mind's chaos. You are the observer. The trick is to swap roles entirely. Let the shadow take on the burden of thought. Watch it. Watch how it tosses and turns. Watch the expression on its face. See it worrying. See it trying to plan or fix something that's already passed or hasn't yet arrived. Notice how its mind claws at the future or the past, desperately searching for safety or control. You are not that anymore. You are the presence, watching, detached, weightless, timeless. You may start to feel a peculiar calm creeping in. That's because the tension wasn't coming from the thoughts themselves, but from believing they were yours. When they belong to this shadow replica, they lose their grip. There's no need to solve or fix anything. It's not your task anymore. And here lies the forbidden nature of the trick. Most self-help tells you to integrate the shadow, to understand it. But tonight, you don't need understanding. You need rest. So you hand over the chaos to the version of you that thrives in it. Let it be anxious. Let it replay everything that went wrong today. Let it overthink a conversation or anticipate rejection. You, meanwhile, drift quietly behind it, untouched. The longer you remain in this role of observer, the more distance grows. The shadow will tire itself out. It always does. Eventually, the version in bed begins to calm. Its expression softens. Its chest rises and falls slowly. And then something strange happens. You begin to feel rested, even though you were not the one battling thoughts. This reversal subtly changes your relationship with mental noise. By externalizing your psychological tension, you disarm its emotional weight. You teach your brain that not every thought must be owned, not every worry must be solved. Some can be handed off to this silent actor playing you just for the night. And each time you do this, the line between who you are and what you think blurs, gently loosening the grip of insomnia. The shadow lies awake, but you drift into stillness. The disobedient thought ritual. There's a secret that most people never dare to explore. Your thoughts aren't loyal. They do not work for you. They don't care if you're trying to rest, if you're exhausted, or if you've begged them to stop. They appear when they want, speak louder when ignored, and sometimes they lie. But what if you stop trying to control them altogether? The forbidden trick is simple, yet deeply unnatural. It feels like breaking a law your brain has lived by for years. Instead of resisting a thought, you invite it in. Not kindly, not gently, but with a daring curiosity that confuses the very mechanism that created it. Picture this.
You're lying in bed. Your body is tired, but your mind is relentless. Maybe it's an embarrassing memory, a worry about tomorrow, a cruel voice replaying something someone said, or worse, something you said. The moment you try to push the thought away, it tightens its grip. So you try to reason with it, to analyze it, to distract yourself. But none of it works. That's when the ritual begins. You isolate one intrusive thought, just one. Don't fight it, don't chase it away. Instead, you ask it to speak, clearly, louder even. You say, not out loud, but with full internal permission, "Go ahead, show me what you've got." Suddenly, the thought doesn't know what to do. It expected resistance. It feeds off suppression. But now, faced with your attention, it stutters. You hear its words, but they sound different, less threatening, strangely hollow. Here's where the ritual becomes even stranger. You now perform what seems like an act of mental sabotage. You repeat the thought, over and over, but not fast, slowly, as if chanting it with deliberate intention. Let's say the thought is, "You're going to fail." You repeat, "You're going to fail." Pause. "You're going to fail." Again, "You're going to fail." After the fifth or sixth repetition, something eerie happens. The sentence begins to lose its shape. The words start to sound strange, like foreign sounds stripped of meaning. Your no longer refers to you. Fail becomes abstract. The sentence collapses into nonsense. This is called semantic satiation, a psychological phenomenon where repetition drains a word of its power. But in this context, it becomes something far more sacred, a ritual to defang the inner tyrant. The disobedient thought expected a battle, but you made it perform on a stage under your spotlight. You made it dance until it fell apart. Now you expand the ritual. Each time a new intrusive thought appears, you welcome it. You slow it down. You make it repeat itself until it dissolves. Not because it was resolved, but because it couldn't survive your direct gaze. The mind survives by slipping in thoughts just fast enough for you to feel them without examining them. But when you slow them down, they suffocate under their own illusion. And soon, you find yourself becoming bored. This is the final secret. The opposite of anxiety is not joy or confidence. It's boredom. A tired, weightless state where nothing is worth obsessing over, where every thought becomes background noise. This technique doesn't require visualization or relaxation. It's raw. It's a psychological trap you set for your own mind. You invite in the attacker and ask it to speak. And the more it speaks, the more it falls apart. Soon there are no more lines to chant. The thoughts don't bother to show up. There's nothing left to fight. And in that absence, your nervous system finds something it hasn't felt in hours: silence. Sleep does not come when the mind is silent. It comes when the mind gives up, not in defeat, in boredom. And so you wait calmly, while your thoughts try to perform one last time, like tired actors in a forgotten play, before the curtain drops and darkness claims the stage.
The echo chamber technique. There's a peculiar flaw in how your mind processes reality. It listens for what it expects to hear, not what's true, not what's real, just what fits the pattern. This trick exploits that flaw. When you lie in bed at night, the brain starts replaying echoes, not of actual sounds, but of judgments,
assumptions, imagined fears. These echoes bounce around inside your head like voices in a deep cave, each repetition reinforcing the illusion that they're real, that they're yours. But the forbidden technique is to trap those echoes in a chamber of your own design and then strip them of meaning. Here's how. Close your eyes and imagine that inside your mind there's a massive dark stone room. The walls are smooth. The ceiling disappears into shadow. It's empty, except for one thing: your voice. Not the physical one, but the one inside your head. The voice that narrates, worries, doubts. That voice now becomes the only thing present in this chamber. You sit in silence, and you wait for the first thought to arise. Maybe it's simple: I can't sleep. That's fine. You let the chamber absorb it. You don't respond. You don't challenge it. You let the thought echo. I can't sleep, sleep, sleep. The echo repeats, not as a command, but as a sound. Each repetition becomes softer, weaker, until the sentence becomes tone, then vibration, then emptiness. Then another thought comes. What if I'm tired tomorrow? You nod internally and send it into the chamber. What if I'm tired, tired, tired? Again, it fades. The echo dies, and in its place, there's silence. Your brain, confused by this process, begins to hesitate. It wants urgency, reaction, panic, but it receives only observation. You're not thinking anymore. You're listening, like someone sitting in an ancient cave listening for wind. Every time a new thought arrives, you repeat the process, not with force, not with control, just acknowledgement and silence. You've become the architect of your own mental acoustics, and in doing so, you've altered the power dynamic. Thoughts don't land the same way in an echo chamber. They cannot expand, multiply, or gain momentum. They bounce once, twice, then dissolve. Now something deeper begins to happen. The voice that used to fill your mind starts to sound artificial. It doesn't feel like you anymore. It's more like a recording, something left behind by a system that forgot to turn itself off. And once you see this, once you hear how hollow those echoes are, you stop fearing them. Even darker thoughts, once terrifying in daylight, now become harmless recordings played into an empty room. They lose their edge. They lose their meaning. They cannot hurt you because they cannot last. Eventually, your brain gives up trying to make noise. The echoes fade. You remain in the chamber, still, present, aware of the vast space where your thoughts used to live. And that's the secret. This technique doesn't erase thoughts, it exposes them. It reveals their dependence on your attention, your belief. When that belief is removed, what's left is sound without substance, words without weight. You're not silencing your mind, you're letting it echo into nothingness. And in that nothingness, sleep arrives, not as an escape, but as a consequence of surrender. You've given your mind space. You've turned it into a chamber too vast for anxiety to cling to, a place where even fear forgets how to speak. All that remains is the echo of quiet, and eventually, not even that.
The paradox of control. The harder you try to sleep, the more awake you become. The more desperately you want peace, the more tension you create. This isn't bad luck, it's a law of the mind, one you've been breaking for years without realizing it.
And tonight, you're going to use that law against itself. This trick is not about calming down. It's not about visualizations or breathing. It's about something far stranger, giving your brain exactly what it wants and watching it choke on it. Here's the paradox. Your mind is addicted to control. It doesn't care if you're tired or if it's 3 a.m. It just wants to be in charge. So when you tell yourself, "I have to fall asleep now," it responds by trying to take control of the falling, as if sleep were a button to be pushed, a task to be completed. But sleep doesn't obey commands. It's a surrender, not a strategy. So the trick is to do something deeply forbidden. You let your mind win. Lie down. Keep your eyes closed. Let your body rest. But tell your mind, "Fine, you're in charge tonight. You don't want to sleep? Then don't." You don't fight. You give it full permission to stay awake. In fact, you make a strange decision that flips the entire script. You decide to try and stay awake, not by moving, not by distracting yourself, but by lying there, doing absolutely nothing, just trying with every ounce of mental force to resist falling asleep. And here's where it gets interesting. The moment you try to stay awake, your body starts getting heavier. Your eyelids flutter. Your breathing slows. Your awareness drifts. Because your brain, now denied the thrill of control, loses interest. It has no enemy left to fight, no goal left to chase. This is called the paradox of control, the psychological principle that when you stop resisting an outcome, your nervous system finally stops bracing against it. You're not pretending, you're not manipulating, you're genuinely letting go of the need to sleep. You don't care if you sleep or not. You're just lying still, awake, forever if needed. But forever never comes, because the brain can only stay awake if it has something to do. And now you've taken away its job. Try it. Tell yourself, "I will not sleep," and then wait. Feel how your mind starts to drift, not from exhaustion, but from boredom. It can't stand this kind of surrender. It needs drama, urgency, effort, and you've given it none. Even if it sends thoughts your way, "What if I don't sleep at all?" You let them pass. You don't argue. You just say, "Good, then I won't sleep." The mind, trapped in its own paradox, begins to malfunction. It tries to solve a problem that no longer exists. It creates loops without momentum. It whispers warnings that no longer scare you. And eventually, it stops. The forbidden trick is not to silence the mind. It's to make it irrelevant. You let it take control so it can discover with absolute certainty that it was never in control at all. And when that truth hits, when the illusion collapses, you fall, not into sleep, but into freedom. You didn't try, you didn't fight, you simply refused to care. And in that refusal, your mind stopped performing. And in that silence, your body finally listened. And in that stillness, sleep arrived, not as a reward, but as a natural ending to a battle that never needed to be fought.
The false memory anchor. There's a glitch buried deep in your brain's architecture. It's called memory, but it doesn't record life the way you think it does. Your brain doesn't store exact events. It stores interpretations, distorted, incomplete, editable, and more importantly, fabricatable. Tonight, you're going to use that glitch to trick yourself into falling asleep. The forbidden technique is this. You plant a false memory, a vivid one, of a night when you slept perfectly. Not vaguely, not like a wish or fantasy. You build it, brick by brick, until your mind believes it happened. And once your brain believes it, your body will follow, because your nervous system listens to memory more than logic. Here's how it begins. You close your eyes. Your bed feels familiar. The dark room presses gently around you. And now you go back, not to a real night from your past, but to a fictional one. A night where everything felt right, where you fell asleep easily, quickly, peacefully. Even if it never happened, you pretend that it did. Start with the details, the softness of the pillow, the way your body felt weightless, as if the mattress wrapped around you like a second skin, the quiet hum of the air, the distant sounds that seemed to drift away as you drifted down. The room was cool, the blankets just warm enough. You were still, unbothered, safe. Your last thought before sleep was something simple, effortless, like, "I'll just let go now." And you did. You build this memory as if you're describing it to someone else, as if it truly happened and you're just remembering it. Add emotion to it, add texture. Don't let it remain abstract. Turn it into something your body feels. Then you anchor yourself to it. This anchor is a symbol, something small, repeatable, quiet. Maybe it's a slow breath with a silent count of 4. Maybe it's the feeling of your hand resting on your stomach. Whatever it is, pair it with this invented memory. Every time you exhale and feel that anchor, you remind your body, we've been here before. We know how to do this. Because that's the power of memory. Even false ones can create real reactions. Your heart rate slows. Your muscles loosen. Your mind stops searching for threats or timelines or unresolved questions. It remembers, whether real or fake, that this moment leads to rest. And that's the trick. You don't argue with your insomnia. You don't try to fix anything. You simply remember differently. You bypass the anxious loops that tell you you never sleep well and instead replace them with a whispered lie that feels like truth. You always sleep like this. Do it long enough and your brain begins to accept it. Your nervous system doesn't care about facts. It responds to patterns. You're giving it a pattern. Calm, release, safety. Rehearsed enough, it becomes reflex. Even if thoughts try to interrupt, this isn't real. You're faking it. You don't respond. You just return to the memory. Because the brain cannot hold two conflicting truths at once. Eventually, the false memory overwrites the waking moment. The sensations blend, and your body forgets it's supposed to stay awake. That's the forbidden nature of this trick. It turns fiction into medicine. You don't chase sleep, you recall it. And in doing so, you unlock the deepest hack your brain has to offer: belief without proof. The story becomes real, the body complies, and sleep, fooled into thinking it's been here before, returns like a faithful echo. Quiet, slow, absolute.
The thought deprivation loop. There's something your mind dreads more than failure, more than uncertainty, even more than fear. It dreads boredom. Your brain is designed to avoid mental silence at all costs. That's why at night it floods you with noise, thoughts, memories, plans, regrets, anything to keep itself from facing nothing. But tonight, we're going to weaponize that fear. We're going to bore the brain into submission. This trick isn't about calming the mind. It's about depriving it of stimulation until it surrenders. Here's how it begins. You lie down. The thoughts are already gathering, spinning stories, warning you about tomorrow, reminding you of what you haven't done. You don't argue. You don't resist. You let them come. But then you refuse to engage. You select one simple phrase. It could be anything. Blue window. Quiet earth. Still water. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's meaningless. No emotion, no association. Just two dull, unrelated words. And now you repeat them. Slowly, softly, internally, over and over. Still water. Still water. Still water. At first, the mind will fight back. It will throw you thoughts, urgent ones. What about your email? What if you're late? You need to check your phone. Don't resist. Just let them float past and return. Still water. Still water. This is the deprivation loop. You're not giving the brain anything to play with. No conflict. No drama, no memory, no fantasy, just the same two words echoing into a void. The mind begins to panic. It tries to trick you with interesting ideas. It teases you with a forgotten memory or a to-do list. You ignore them, not angrily, not with force. You simply say, "Not now," and you return. Still water. Still water. Eventually, something starts to happen. Your thoughts slow, not because they've been defeated, but because they've been starved. Starved of attention, starved of novelty. And then your awareness starts to slip. The words begin to blur. The repetition becomes automatic. You forget which word comes first. You forget why you're saying them. Your mind begins to lose interest in the act of being awake. This is the sweet spot. Your consciousness thins. The borders between your thoughts and the darkness around you dissolve, and the words you've repeated so many times disappear. Your body begins to shut down system by system without effort. Your breath slows. Your limbs become distant, numb. Your brain, deprived of entertainment, chooses its only remaining option: sleep. The beauty of the thought deprivation loop is that it requires no strength, no deep focus, no emotion. Only dullness, only simplicity, only silence wrapped in repetition. And when practiced long enough, your brain starts to fear this pattern. It remembers how quickly it leads to sleep, how uninteresting it feels, how empty it becomes. So eventually, it stops fighting before you even begin. That's the forbidden nature of this trick. You don't win by overpowering your thoughts. You win by boring them to death. And when the final word fades and the loop ends on its own, you're already asleep.
The inverted attention spiral. There's a twisted rule your brain secretly follows. The more you try not to think about something, the more power it gains. That's why the moment you say, "I need to quiet my mind," it becomes louder. Why "don't think about tomorrow" turns into an endless loop of scenarios. Why trying to escape thoughts traps you inside them. But tonight, you'll stop escaping. You'll do the forbidden thing. You'll walk straight into the spiral, but backward. This is the inverted attention spiral. You begin by choosing the very thought you wish you could get rid of. Not the pleasant one, not the shallow one, the real one, the ugly one. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's a regret, maybe it's the sick anticipation of something you can't control. Normally, you'd resist. You'd distract yourself with breathing exercises or visualizations. Not tonight. Tonight, you zoom in. You lie in bed, close your eyes, and picture this thought as an object, not a concept, an actual physical thing. A black orb, a tangled wire, a rusted gear, whatever shape matches the weight it holds. Now, observe it, not as a threat, but as a structure. Where does it begin? Where is it heaviest? Where does the tension live? Is it cold, warm, metallic, elastic? As you explore it, you do something strange. You magnify your attention. Instead of pulling away from the discomfort, you zoom in so far that the thought begins to lose its emotional context and becomes mechanical, almost boring. Here's the trick. The human mind can't hold intense focus on an emotional thought and treat it like a neutral object at the same time. When you examine something too closely, the narrative breaks. It stops being my fear and becomes this shape, this texture, this presence. And now, the spiral begins. You go deeper into the thought, not toward its meaning, but its anatomy. Why is it tight in your chest? Why is it echo in your throat? Why does your stomach pull inward when it arrives? The closer you get, the less abstract it becomes. And suddenly, like a dream collapsing under scrutiny, the thought weakens. You continue spiraling inward, not emotionally, mechanically. You find the center of the discomfort, the still, silent core beneath the noise. And what you find there is nothing. No solution, no conclusion, just stillness. Just the realization that all this time the thought only lived because you kept feeding it with distance, with fear, with resistance. Now that you're face to face with it, there's nowhere left for it to go. No reaction left to trigger. You've reversed the spiral. And now you let it collapse. Let the shape fade. Let the texture dissolve. Let the imagined weight drip away like paint washed from glass. And feel what's left. Your body doesn't need instructions anymore. It doesn't need reassurance. You've shown your nervous system that there's nothing hiding behind the thought. No monster, no truth, no consequence. Just patterns. And you've stepped into the pattern and burned it from the inside out. Here's the forbidden truth no one tells you. You don't have to fight your mind. You have to expose it. Anxiety, fear, overthinking, they only survive in the shadows. The inverted attention spiral turns the light on. And once the light is on, you don't need to do anything else. Your brain, emptied of fuel, releases the body. The body, emptied of tension, releases the breath. The breath, slowed into rhythm, invites the quiet. And the quiet becomes sleep. Not because you forced it, not because you escaped, but because you finally looked so closely at the noise that all it could do was disappear.
The silent confession method. There's a reason your mind speaks louder at night. It's not because the world is quiet. It's because your defenses are down. All the noise you ignore during the day, buried thoughts, quiet fears, small lies you tell yourself to keep functioning, they begin to rise when the lights go out. This is the hour of confession, but not the kind you say out loud. This one is secret. And it doesn't need words. It needs honesty. The forbidden technique is to stop pretending. Not for the world, for yourself. Here's how it works. You lie in bed, eyes closed, breathing soft. And you ask a question that most people never dare to face when they're alone. What am I hiding from myself? At first, your mind will resist. It will offer surface answers that you're tired, that you're thinking too much, that you're just stressed. But wait. Be still. Ask again. What am I hiding from myself? Now, allow something uncomfortable to rise. Maybe it's a moment from earlier today, a conversation where you weren't fully honest. Maybe it's a deeper fear, a disappointment, a grudge you still hold, an expectation that was never met. Maybe it's a thought about someone you love but don't trust. Maybe it's about yourself, something you don't like to admit lives in you. Here's the trick. You don't judge it, you don't analyze it, you don't even try to fix it. You just silently confess it. You say it to yourself, not in full sentences, but as a feeling, a quiet internal surrender. I felt jealous. I felt weak. I lied. I'm still angry. I wanted to quit. I felt empty and I didn't know why. You allow these small truths to enter your awareness without fighting them off. You feel them not as punishments, but as real things. Things you've carried, things you've buried, things that never asked to be hidden. And as you do, your body reacts. First, tension. Then a kind of release you didn't know you needed. Because the mind, even in all its complexity, is still a machine. And machines malfunction when they're full of unreleased data. These unspoken truths have weight. When you pretend they don't exist, your nervous system stays locked in alert mode. It's why your chest feels tight, why your jaw stays clenched, why your thoughts feel circular. It's not anxiety, it's suppression. The silent confession method isn't spiritual, it's neurological. When you admit something to yourself, something raw, quiet, and real, your brain lets go. Your stress response shuts down. You're no longer running from anything. There's nothing left to hide. And you don't need a solution. You don't need closure. You just need honesty. There's a moment after a true confession, even a silent one, where the body loosens, like it finally believes you again, like it no longer needs to stand guard against a version of you that isn't real. In that moment, sleep becomes possible, not as an escape, but as a return to alignment, to wholeness, to the truth. Because the mind doesn't rest when it's safe. It rests when it's honest. And once you've said the thing you were afraid to think, once you've felt the weight of that truth without trying to fix or reframe it, you've done something most people never do. You've stopped lying to the only person who matters when you're alone, yourself. And in the stillness that follows, when the mind has nothing left to hide, and the breath deepens not from effort, but from release, sleep takes you, gently, without question, without resistance, because nothing is heavier than a hidden truth, and nothing is more powerful than letting it go.
The mental disassembly trick. Your thoughts are not solid. They only pretend to be. They arrive with the weight of truth, dressed in urgency, cloaked in logic. But when you look closer, you'll see they're just constructs. Sentences glued together by memory, fear, language, emotion. And like any structure, they can be taken apart. That's the trick tonight. You're going to disassemble a thought, slowly, deliberately, until there's nothing left of it but silence. You lie in bed. A thought appears. It might not seem special. Just another worry, another replay of something awkward you said, something you didn't do, or something you might have to do tomorrow. And your instinct is to react, to respond, to push it away or explain it. Don't. This time, you treat it like a machine you're going to take apart piece by piece until it stops running. Start with the sentence. Maybe it says, "I'm not ready for tomorrow." You don't argue. You don't challenge it. You just isolate one word, ready. What does that word even mean? Ready how? Emotionally? Logistically? Socially? Break it further. What makes someone ready? And who defines that? Already, you're not thinking about the worry, you're thinking about the parts of the thought. Then isolate tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Not a day, not an event, just an idea, a concept your brain uses to predict discomfort. Tomorrow doesn't exist yet. It's a projection, a simulation. You've already pulled the battery out of the machine. Now take "I'm not." A label, a quick identity your mind gave you. But who is I in that sentence? The tired version of you? The thinking version? The anxious one? And where exactly is the evidence for not? This isn't philosophy, it's disassembly. You keep going until the sentence that once felt heavy and important now feels hollow, like a string of magnets that lost their pull. The sentence crumbles, and in that quiet collapse, something strange happens. Your brain pauses. Not in defeat, in confusion. Because your brain wants structure. It wants to cling to coherent worries. But now you've dismantled the machine. You've scattered the gears. And the mind has nothing left to spin. Another thought appears. That's fine. You repeat the process. I should have handled that differently. Break down should have. Whose standard? Whose expectation? Handled. What does that even mean? Controlled? Changed? Avoided? And that, what specifically? Define it so precisely that it loses its weight. And differently, how? What version would have been better? Each word pulled apart, each part exposed, each illusion melted. Now silence doesn't feel like something you're chasing. It feels like something you've earned. You're not calming the mind. You're breaking it. Gently, respectfully, without force. And the moment it realizes it can't hold the thought together anymore, the system powers down. You didn't conquer the thought. You didn't positive think your way out of it. You took it apart until it couldn't function. And now there's nothing left to keep you awake. Just the hum of breath, the weight of stillness, the softness of sheets, and the knowledge that your thoughts, every single one, are just temporary shapes waiting to be taken apart. And when the pieces fall, so do you. Into rest, into stillness, into the deep, quiet dark, where thought has no tools and no voice.
The psychological decoy method. Your mind wants to be useful. That's the problem. It sees stillness as laziness, quiet as danger, and rest as a threat to its survival. So the moment you lie down, eyes closed, body still, it activates. It starts checking. Is something unresolved? Did I forget something? Is there anything I can fix? And if it finds nothing, it creates something. That's where the endless loops come from. Not trauma, not stress, just a mind that refuses to be unemployed. But tonight, you're going to give it a job. Not a real one, a fake one, a psychological decoy. Here's how it works. You lie still. You don't fight the thoughts. You don't try to push them away. But instead of letting your mind invent chaos, you assign it a pointless task, a soft, harmless, endlessly looping job that feels just important enough to keep it occupied. Start with a pattern. Imagine a hallway with 5 doors. Each door is a color: red, blue, green, yellow, white. You tell your mind your job is to open each door, but only one at a time, and slowly. So your mind opens the red door. Behind it, a candle, flickering. You observe the flicker, the way the light moves on the walls. You give it 10 seconds. Then you close the red door. Now blue. Behind it, a pool of water. Still, deep, cold. You imagine dropping a stone into it. Watch the ripples. 1, 2, 3, gone. Close the blue door. Next, green, a field of tall grass, wind moving in slow waves, the sound of insects humming. You breathe once deeply. Close the green door. Yellow, a wooden chair, empty, warm sunlight, a quiet room with dust in the air. Nothing moves. You observe. You leave. White, just white. No floor, no ceiling, no shape. Just brightness, soft and infinite. Now you return to the first door. Red again. Same candle, but it flickers slower, weaker. The mind begins to drift. You've given your brain a puzzle it can never finish. A cycle with no reward, no stress, no urgency, but it feels like something. Just enough to stop it from building imaginary crises. And now the trick deepens. Every time you cycle through the doors, the images inside become slightly duller. The candle dims. The pool becomes misty. The grass gets shorter. The sunlight fades. The whiteness becomes darkness. You're not visualizing to stay awake. You're visualizing to tire your imagination. This is the forbidden brilliance of the decoy. You trick your own brain into working itself towards stillness. Because if you try to shut your thoughts off directly, the mind panics. But if you give it a meaningless ritual, it uses up its energy chasing shadows. Think of it like handing a dog a bone. It stops barking. Not because the noise is gone, but because you gave it something to chew on. Now expand the trick. Add small tasks to each door. In the blue room, try to count the ripples. In the green field, search for a hidden feather. In the yellow room, trace the shape of the chair's shadow. In the white space, try to find the edge of it. You never will. That's the point. And while your brain focuses on these gentle, fruitless tasks, you stop thinking. Not because your mind went silent, but because it became preoccupied with something harmless. And soon, the colors fade. The rooms blur. You forget which door was which. The hallway melts into gray. You forget what you were doing. The pattern breaks. The process unravels. Because the brain, finally bored and exhausted from chasing your clever illusions, lets go. Not from surrender, but from confusion. It doesn't know where it is anymore, what task it was doing, why it started in the first place. And in that pause, in that moment where your mind has nothing left to simulate, sleep enters. Softly, without permission, like a fog rolling in beneath a door that no longer exists. You built a decoy so convincing that even your own inner voice got lost in it. And while it wandered the endless rooms of your invention, you slipped through the back door unnoticed, into silence, into weightlessness, into the dark sanctuary where thoughts cannot follow.